Welcome to Mike Drop Reviews. I'm Mike, and more importantly, welcome to the very first review here on the channel. I'm going to be reviewing Marvel's Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, the third installment of the Ant-Man movies, and the first movie in Marvel's Phase 5. Let's get quantum. Movies and shows that you should see and need to see before seeing this movie. Obviously, Ant-Man 1 and 2, Doctor Strange, Multiverse of Madness, Spider-Man, No Way Home, and Loki. I think Loki is, at least the last episode of Loki, is probably the most important thing, other than the actual two Ant-Man movies, to see before seeing this. My initial reaction to Quantumania is positive. It was a fun movie. I enjoyed it. I didn't leave the theater, feeling disappointed. It made me want more of Kang, and it made me excited to see where Marvel is going with him and his variants. It felt like an Ant-Man movie. I do think it was better than Ant-Man and the Wasp, but it felt like an Ant-Man film, and if you sprinkled in a little bit of Thor Ragnarok, Star Wars, and Avatar, and those three things mainly because of the humor that's within those movies, and then the introductions to new worlds. Sakaar, Pandora, the whole Star Wars universe. In this film, in Quantumania, we're introduced to we get a much bigger picture of the quantum realm. Before this movie came out, people were saying that it was an Avengers level movie. I would have to disagree. I think a more accurate description would be that it's an Ant-Man movie with an Avengers level threat, that being Kang. I think that it dumbs down the expectations just a little bit, and I think it's just a more accurate description. And when you have those expectations, or you call a movie an Avengers level film, you're creating very large expectations in your audience, and when you do that, if you don't give them exactly what they're expecting, people start complaining, and a lot of those complaints can become public. So I want to address a few of the popular complaints with Quantumania. Just be aware that some of these complaints are going to contain spoilers, so if you have not seen this movie yet, just be aware that the further I get into this, the more spoilers that are going to come up. So first complaint that I want to address is characters who were in the movie that didn't really serve a purpose, or they did nothing. Yes and no. Obviously, going into a new realm, going into the quantum realm, there's going to be new characters, and so we're introduced to these new characters, and most of them are minor characters that serve a very minor role, and that's just what they were meant to serve. So the good minor characters, they help Ant-Man and the family, and then Bill Murray's character, he betrays Janet Van Dyne, and he was a former love interest, temporary love interest, when she was stuck in the quantum realm for 30 years. He ends up betraying her. He serves his purpose. I think we're so used to, and we were just, the Infinity Saga made us feel so, that's just what we've come to expect, is that every character is going to serve this role, and that role is going to go all the way until the end. And it sucks, because it was such a amazing thing what the Infinity Saga was able to do, but now it's created these expectations and this entitlement, and it takes away from just simply enjoying the movie. But I digress. So it's no secret that the last few Marvel projects have been heavily criticized for visual effects. Doctor Strange was criticized. She-Hulk was definitely criticized. I think Ms. Marvel was criticized, and this movie is really no different. This movie has been pretty criticized for its visual effects. Me watching it, there was really only one instance of where I was looking at something or watching something and I was like, oh, all right, well that looks a little funky or that didn't look right, and that's when you see Cassie and her dad fighting together at the same time, and it's actually the first time you see her fight with her suit, and just her like shrinking and then enlarging. It looks a little off. And I mean that's no small task. I mean the whole power and technology of Pym-Tech and Ant-Man and everything. That's it's very difficult. So I mean I give them credit, but that was really the only moment for me that I felt like that looked a little bit weird. However, the biggest critique of the visual effects in the movie is the character MODOK. A character that I really like and love. He's just really kind of quirky and evil and unique and stupid, but actually really, really smart. So they retconned or basically changed the backstory of MODOK in this movie. And so MODOK in this movie is actually Darren Cross, the villain, Yellow Jacket, from the first Ant-Man movie. He technically survived when he got like crunched up into a little ball, and Kang actually basically brings him back to life, but he sustained so much damage to his body that he couldn't make him look like back to a normal human. And so the character MODOK is, and since he's been created in the comics, is this big head with little arms and little legs. And he sits in this chair and he's got these weapons and everything, but he's still, with the massive head, he's still a genius and he's still insanely smart. And Darren Cross was Hank Pym's protege. And he was basically going to basically be the next Ant-Man, but Hank Pym didn't want him to be, because he saw too much of himself in him. And so MODOK is Darren Cross, and putting, the actor Corey Stoll putting his face, they basically had to stretch out the face of the character because he's now this big face, this big head in a chair. And looking back on it now, seeing some photos, it looks awkward, it looks weird. But I mean, again, he's a large head in a moving chair with little arms and little legs, you know what I mean? So, I mean, I guess they could have done it better, but I mean, I don't know. I really enjoyed his character in the movie a lot, probably more than a lot, most viewers. And then last complaint that I've been hearing is that there hasn't been enough of Scott Lang and Hope Van Dyne, and which is particularly true. This movie is a family adventure into a realm that none of them really know anything about, except for Janet Van Dyne. She knows a lot, and it's not far from the truth that you don't really see a lot of them in the movie. You do and you don't, but the movie definitely focuses more on Janet and Kang the Conqueror. It's no. After you see this movie, you'll definitely be like, "Wow, they stole the show." They are, definitely front and center, and I feel like that's addressed fairly quickly in the movie. So I mean, yeah, technically that's true. You don't really see, even though it's an Ant-Man and the Wasp movie, you don't necessarily see a lot of Paul Rudd and Evangeline Lilly. However, my rebuttal to that would be, who is the original Ant-Man and who is the original Wasp? That would be Hank Pym and Janet Van Dyne, which Janet has a huge part in this movie, and Hank, for the most part, is side by side with her in this film. And I feel like when he's on screen, it hits pretty much every time, whether he's joking about something or he's just saying something, whatever his reaction to something, it feels real. So people need to remember that even though we've been introduced to Paul Rudd as Ant-Man Scott Lang, Hank Pym is the original Ant-Man and Janet Van Dyne is the original Wasp. So with that, I want to go into the positives of the movie. So, as I said, Janet Van Dyne and Kang the Conqueror steal the show, and they do absolutely. Michelle Pfeiffer as Janet Van Dyne and Jonathan Majors as Kang the Conqueror are absolutely phenomenal. Their connection together in scenes that they're together, you feel the tension. You, in a way, almost feel the romance, because they actually were stuck together in the quantum realm. That's basically where Kang kind of originates in this movie, is that Janet's already there, and he essentially crash lands into the quantum realm, and they create a very close, strong bond. So them together, they're excellent. Their performance was excellent. And like I said before, so MODOK. I love MODOK in this movie. He's just... some of the lines were really dumb. His conversation with Cassie towards the end of the movie about him not being a dick, it's kind of stupid. Now that I think about it, it reminds me of Star-Lord and John C. Reilly's interaction in the first Guardians of the Galaxy, when he like leaves a voicemail for them, or he talks to them and he's basically apologizing or saying like he's not a dick. It kind of has vibes of that, but regardless, I personally love MODOK. I watched a little bit of the MODOK TV show on Hulu when it first came out. I've seen him in comic books a little bit. I like his character. I mean, I know he might have not looked the best, visual effects wise, but I don't know. I enjoyed his presence. I don't really mind that they retconned his backstory. Instead they made it Darren Cross, Yellow Jacket from the first Ant-Man. It shares the same sense, or shares the same feeling as Red Skull. In Captain America 1, Red Skull touches the Tesseract and poof, disappears. We don't see him way down the line until Infinity War, when Thanos and Gamora travel to Vormir. It has that same vibe as that, and so it was really unexpected, but I saw the trailer, so I saw Darren Cross's face. But it kind of keeps connecting more dots, because Darren Cross's Yellow Jacket helmet was seen in the Void in Loki. Obviously, that would be a different variant, I guess, of Yellow Jacket, but it's still cool to kind of just see all these little things that are connecting. And so, branching off of that, continuity. I thought that this movie did really well with continuity and grabbing from all different Marvel projects that we've seen in the past. In Ant-Man 1, Hank talks to Hope, basically explaining to her and finally telling her, what happened to her mother. And that was the reason why Hope essentially hated her father, is because he never told her, what happened to her mother. And, Hank's reasoning for not telling her, was because I lost your mother. I didn't want to lose you too. In this movie, at the very beginning, you can tell that Janet doesn't want to talk about the quantum realm. She doesn't want to tell them anything. And it's essentially for the same reason. She doesn't want Hope and Hank, to go digging deeper and, go looking in the quantum realm, because she knows that Kang is there. Hank didn't want Hope trying to find her mother because, the quantum realm was dangerous and he had already lost her. He didn't want to lose her. He didn't want to lose Hope. Janet didn't want to lose her family either. You try and protect people with telling them less information. And essentially it was the same thing. Ant-Man talks about how he fought with Captain America in Berlin at the airport in Captain America Civil War, not against him. Paul Rudd makes a joke about how the Hulk accidentally turned him into a baby in Endgame when they were trying to figure out the whole time travel thing. So yeah, the continuity is quite strong, and it's really cool to see them, pulling from all these different movies. So I'm going to switch gears now, and I'm going to talk about some of the negatives of the movie. So in Ant-Man 1 and 2, we're introduced to Scott's crew. Luis, Kurt, and Dave. So their friendship, their personality, everything, they were really they were the comic relief, or some of the comic relief, in the first two Ant-Man movies. Their presence was pretty funny, and when they were on screen, it wasn't like you were waiting for the scene to end or something like that. Like, it was funny. They made you laugh, or it served a purpose. So unfortunately, they're not in this movie, and I can't remember if director Peyton Reed said it or one of the writers said it, but they said that there was no place for them in the movie. And I think I saw that comment before actually seeing the movie, and I didn't really understand it, because I'm like, how hard is it to just have them in the movie? After seeing the movie, you get into the quantum realm fairly quickly, and so the rest of the movie completely takes place in the quantum realm. So besides really the very beginning and the ending, and I don't think the ending would have been fitting. So the only part that really would have been applicable would have been in the beginning, and it would have had to been something short, kind of during Paul Rudd's voiceover, as of what his life has been like after Endgame. So speaking of MODOK and how much I enjoyed his character, they killed him off, which kind of sucked, because I felt like he's a very unique villain who could really stir up some trouble and cause some damage, just like Zola did in Captain America with Hydra and stuff like that. Yeah, I thought Darren Cross, Corey Stoll did a really good job, bringing that character to the screen. It was I don't know, it was just different. I enjoyed. It sucks, man. You get a, even if he's a villain, you have a character, and you just you want him to stick around for a little bit. But MODOK kind of goes out with a bang. He kind of sort of goes out as a good guy, and he basically believes that he's an Avenger, and he's on Team Ant-Man, and it was kind of funny. And Scott Lang's reaction to him saying that is a pretty natural reaction. You're not an Avenger, you didn't die as an Avenger, you're just you were pure evil, and you kind of just switched up at the last second in a way for your own benefit, because Cassie told you not be a dick. So so it sucks that he's most likely not going to be in another MCU movie, but I enjoyed his presence. It was really cool. So, and then I guess probably the maybe the biggest negative of the movie, which is odd, because he's also one of the positive parts of the movie, is Kang. He's essentially defeated at the end of the movie. He's not killed. We don't see him actually die. He basically goes out like Darren Cross did in the end of Ant-Man 1, where he kind of gets smushed together. That same thing happens to him after fighting with Scott and Hope. It felt like he lost a little bit too easy, but in a way it makes sense, because this version of Kang was kind of immature with his emotions. He was very greedy, angry, very revenge oriented, and I think that clouds his judgment and his mission in a way, even though his main mission literally is just to get revenge on all of the Kangs, the other Kangs that exiled him. Um, and so for an Ant-Man movie, I wouldn't have really thought that Kang the Conqueror was the villain. So, you ask yourself, is Kang the right villain for this movie? Is Kang, is Kang out of place? Or in this sense, is Kang out of time? And in a way, yes. I definitely wouldn't expect, Kang to be the main villain of an Ant-Man movie. But when you have a movie that focuses on a realm or universe that is pretty much completely new to us, and we're just learning about variants and stuff like that, it makes a little bit more sense. And with the ending of the movie, after Kang is defeated and they all get out of the quantum realm, and Scott kind of goes back to doing his voiceover for the end of the movie, they go out to dinner to celebrate Cassie's birthday, even though it's technically not her birthday. And you could visually see and hear the sense of paranoia and fear from Scott, that they're not really sure if they defeated Kang. Like, he's second guessing himself, he's questioning himself. He's not confident that they won. And it's very reminiscent, and again, this leads back to continuity. This is very reminiscent of Avengers Age of Ultron, when Tony grabs his staff and he sees all the Avengers are dead and the Chitauri are coming through space, coming to invade Earth, and Tony's the only one that survived. His reaction from that, you see like a mirror image in Scott, which is really, really cool. And it goes to show like just how terrified they are of the possibility that he's going to come back. So I thought that was a really cool and unique way, to kick off Phase 5 and end the movie, and it reminds you of Tony Stark and, how Thanos, was in his head for years, and it seems just like the same thing is happening, but now it's Kang inside of Scott Lang's head. Now I want to get to the after movie stuff. The mid-credit scene of Quantumania introduces us to the Council of Kangs, a gathering of Kangs from thousands of different timelines, some being variants of the original Kang, and some being aliens and creatures that usurped Kang, Nathaniel Richards, in their own timeline, and then took up the mantle. They are the MCU's equivalent of Buffalo Bills fans, so in a sense, they're not the Bills Mafia, but they're Kang's Mafia. Alongside the introduction of the Council of Kangs, we are also introduced to 3 specific variants of Kang. The first variant of Kang being Rama Tut, a time-traveling overlord who settles in ancient Egypt and becomes Pharaoh, also known as Pharaoh Rama Tut. He is the first Kang to ever appear in Marvel Comics, and he is notorious for fighting and enslaving the Fantastic Four, and he also tried to marry Sue Storm, the Invisible Woman. The second variant that we are introduced to is the Scarlet Centurion. Now, this is slightly complicated because there are 2 variants of Kang that take up the moniker Scarlet Centurion, a father and a son. The son being the 23rd son of Nathaniel Richards, aka Kang the Conqueror. I'm going to assume that this is that Scarlet Centurion. He is extensively trained in warfare. He is proficient in hand-to-hand combat and has numerous types of futuristic technology at his fingertips. He fights the same enemies that his father fights. Most notably, the Avengers from Earth 616, which would be the Avengers from the MCU as we know it. He is ultimately killed by his father because he gets feelings for Carol Danvers, Captain Marvel, and it clouds his judgment. The third variant of Kang that we are introduced to is the scholarly, wisdom-filled, deceptive, and persuasive Immortus. He is the final incarnation of Kang. He bends the knee to the Timekeepers in exchange for control of one part of time. This causes other Kang variants to despise him and call him a weakling, which you can see in this scene. Pharaoh Ramatut bends the knee to him, Scarlet Centurion does not. This is because most of Kangs want to acquire and conquer all of time, versus Immortus, who is complacent and just holding his one set piece of time. The post-credit scene of Quantumania gives us our first look at yet another variant of Kang, this time being Victor Timely. Victor Timely is a patient, methodical, plan-oriented variant. He is a brilliant inventor and industrialist and rivals that of Henry Ford and Thomas Edison. He is essentially what you could say the Howard Stark of Kang variants. He is doing a presentation presenting technology that could shape time instead of letting time shape us. This technology that he's introducing is going to shape the future technology, but what is current for us in the MCU. So Stark Tech, nanotech, technology that we've seen in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., any futuristic technology or technological advancements are going to originate back to Victor Timely. So in the crowd watching his presentation is Loki and Mobius. So I believe this scene is taken directly from season 2 of Loki, whether it be during the episode or a post-credit scene. Probably a post-credit scene because it's relatively short. Either way, it's really awesome to see Loki back on the big screen, and it's really cool to see Disney Plus stuff on the big screen also, again, to show that cohesiveness and that continuity. Mobius isn't really fazed by this guy. He doesn't really care or understand the big deal. However, Loki is stricken with fear and is absolutely terrified and is not ready for what is to come. And I don't think that Marvel fans are either. With all that being said, MikeDropReviews gives Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania a 7 out of 10. If you want to support me and support this channel, please like the video, share, and subscribe, and hit that bell for notifications so you know every time that I'm posting a review. Thank you for watching, thank you for listening, and I'll see you soon.